Okay, let me start off by saying that I think the PlayStation 2 is the greatest system of all time, and I know a lot of my OGs in gaming watching this video will probably agree with me, but let's admit it, we are getting old, and a lot of these new generation gamers, they never got to experience the PlayStation 2 in all of its glory, unless, well, they're into emulation, and I hope they are. So let's take a trip back to 2000 when the PlayStation 2 was released. I was 12 years old and had become a PlayStation fanboy since the first PlayStation. But little did I know that the PlayStation 2 would make history by becoming the best-selling console of all time, selling over 160 million units worldwide, and what's crazy is that's nearly triple the combined lifetime sales of its 6th generation competitors, that being the original Xbox, GameCube, and Dreamcast. But what made the PS2 so special? Well, a few things. The hardware, the software, the pricing, the timing, the marketing. I mean, you combine all of these and of course the PS2 was going to be unstoppable. Sony had estimated that the PS2 would sell 155 million units, but when Sony confirmed the numbers, they were over 160 million PS2 units sold worldwide. The PS2 remained in production until early 2013. Now that's a long lifespan, almost 13 years, and that's wild, and it's even wilder because in 2006 the PS3 was released. But even with a new console out, the PS2 sales just kept coming in. I mean, 25% of PS2 total sales, which is over 40 million units, were sold after PS3's launch. And if you're wondering how much the PS3 sold, well, its total was 87.4 million. Now, after hearing all of that, you're probably wondering, how did the PS2 thrive well past its peak? Well, one of the biggest reasons, or I should say the biggest reason, is the integrated DVD player. This feature was even attractive to non-gamers because, see, in the early 2000s, standalone DVD players were expensive, so the PS2 offered both gaming and video playback for roughly the same cost, making it a smart purchase for families and consumers. Because even back then, we loved affordable home entertainment, and back then, the PS2 was the only DVD player I had in the house, and the family watched a lot of movies on that thing. Also, in some regions, you could get a free copy of the Matrix DVD with your PS2, and The Matrix was a huge movie in 1999. Another big feature was backwards compatibility, and the PS2 supported nearly all PS1 titles, allowing you to instantly access a huge library of existing games. For many people, this compatibility meant instant value for those who had a lot of PS1 games. On top of the backwards compatibility, the system itself had an unmatched game library and full third-party support from everyone. At the end, PS2 had a total of 10,987 titles, selling over 1.54 billion game units in total. It featured some of the most iconic franchises ever, including Grand Theft Auto, Final Fantasy, God of War, Kingdom Hearts, Shadow of the Colossus, and countless others, many available exclusively on PS2. Titles like Final Fantasy X, Grand Theft Auto Vice City and San Andreas, Metal Gear Solid 2, Gran Turismo 3, and others became blockbuster hits. They were topping sales charts across all regions, showing PS2's mainstream appeal. Developers from across the world embraced the PS2. Sony's developer tools and third-party support meant studios of all sizes could bring their games to a massive user base, resulting in both A-list and niche titles thriving on the platform. At launch, the price of the PS2 was $300. Sony undercut companies by pricing the PS2 lower than the first Xbox and comparable to the GameCube, even though only PS2 offered DVD playback out of the three. By 2002, Sony dropped its price to $200, matching GameCube and undercutting Xbox by about $100, making it a great value for both gaming and DVDs. Even in developing markets where pirated software and hardware were everywhere, people still showed support for the PlayStation 2, and this was good because PS2 was one of the easiest consoles to jailbreak. The price point and game prices really helped this install base across countries like Brazil, India, and parts of Eastern Europe, where price sensitivity mattered more than brand loyalty. Even years after 2013, PS2 hardware continued to circulate in secondary markets and rentals. Now we know Xbox and GameCube was the real competition, but Sega Dreamcast came first and had some great innovations. But PS2 raised the bar with advanced 128-bit graphics, support for online gaming, and later hardware revisions like the slimline redesign, which reduced size, power, usage, noise, and cost. Sony embraced plug and play, keeping things simple, no day one patches or online updates necessary. Buying a game meant immediate play with memory card saves that you could physically transfer between machines for easy co-op or multiplayer setups. This seamless experience stood in contrast to modern consoles with frequent updates and network logins required. And how could I forget to mention the DualShock 2 controller, which was praised for its comfort and design, which is another important factor because it's what you hold in your hand for your gaming sessions. There was just so much to love about this system, and it became the go-to console for budget gaming and secondhand sales. Plus, if you waited, they always dropped the price of their biggest games into the greatest hits collection, where you could get them for $20. And I'm not gonna lie, all of my games had the greatest hits on the box because my parents wasn't paying full price for anything. But hey, I was happy. Now, I don't think anyone who played or had a PS2 can say that its success was an accident, unless you just chose to hate PlayStation because at the time, the console was perfect. Now today, in 2025, PS2 is still king when it comes to sales, with the Nintendo DS at number 2 with 154 million and the Nintendo Switch in third place with 152.1 million. So can and will any other system ever outsell the PS2? Well, it is possible, but not guaranteed. But I do want to give the Switch 1 props because they are not that far behind and they are still selling consoles even with the Switch 2 out, so they can get a little bit closer, maybe become number 2, but as the recording of this video, PS2 is still king.